Welcome back, folks. Today we are doing something a little bit different. Something I've never seen a Dynasty Fantasy Football creator do, but I'm all about transparency here. I want you guys to be able to get a nice look inside my mind, how I manage my team, some of the moves I make. And so I wanted to highlight a season in review for a team that I did a startup for this offseason and took throughout the year all the moves I made, what I did in the startup draft, and where it took me to by the end of the year. I will preface this by saying this was an interesting league for me because I intentionally decided to punt a startup. It's not something I do very often. Most of the time, if you follow some of my short form content over on TikTok, you know that I like to stay hyper competitive in any league that I'm in. I'm actually a big proponent of shipping draft picks to, keep yourself in a contending window and maximize your opportunity to win each and every year rather than take the risk of rookies most times. However, I had done a lot of startups this offseason. I was specifically looking to take a different approach on this one. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to take you through the startup trades that I made, show you the team as you're seeing on this draft board, what it looked like at the end of the startup, and then take you through a small progression of my season and how everything ended up. I actually shockingly did make the playoffs in this league and lose in the first round. Was not my intention. As I mentioned, I tried to punt. I think it's just, out of a startup, a lot of teams are competitive anyway, and a lot of the deeper, chances that I took in the draft actually ended up panning out for me quite well here. And so I still ended up being competitive while still setting myself up for the future. But with that nice long intro there, let's go ahead and dive straight into the meat on the bones here. And as you can see, here's me, Dynasty PC. I am drafting from the 111 here. As you guys can see, standard practice for me, I normally move my first pick in a startup. That is what I tend to do in order to accumulate more chances in the middle rounds and build a deeper roster. Now, I also should mention, this is a Superflex tight end premium 1.75. You also get an extra half-point bonus for every tight end first down. So it's really a hell of a lot closer to a 2.25 tight end premium. And you start 2 tight ends each and every week. So this is an extremely heavy tight end premium format. Keep that in mind. And a quite deep format as a start 11 with starting 2 tight ends. So depth matters a lot. That is a big reason why, as I mentioned, I normally ship my first round pick. But as you can see here, the first trade that I ended up making in this league was moving that 111 and a 26 third round pick that I had already for the 203 in the startup and a 26 first. So essentially, I really moved back 4 spots here in order to get an extra 26 first. That was the first trade I made. As you can see here at the 2-3, I went ahead and selected Amon-Ra St. Brown because, as we've seen this season, he is just a absolutely hyper-efficient, consistent player that gets a massive amount of targets from Jared Goff in a high-powered offense for the Detroit Lions and is just such a reliable piece to start your dynasty team around. I personally normally go wide receiver builds. I know that's, traditionally now the most popular way to build a team, so it doesn't really make me that unique in the community to say that I prefer going a wide receiver build. However, I do think it's so important to get this cornerstone receiver on your team that you just feel good about, and there's very few guys above Amon-Ra St. Brown that I would pick. As you can see, a big reasoning why I do so is I am all about consistency, guys that line up multiple seasons in a row and that I can rely on each and every week. St. Brown, since 2022, had that wide receiver 7 finish, and then 3, and guess where he is again this year? 3. He is as much of a lock as you could have, way more consistent even than a Jamar Chase and a Justin Jefferson who fluctuate a bit. St. Brown is my guy in startups. And so now let's move on here. As you can see, as a part of the next trade, I went ahead actually and sent away the 202, which was my second round pick. If you guys remember, I got the 203 by moving the 111, but the 202 was my other second. I actually ended up punting again here and sending the 202, the 502, and a 4th round pick in 2026. So just a lowly rookie pick. In order to get the 208, the 405 in the startup, and then a 26 first and second. So at this point, I already have 326 firsts going into my very first pick, being Amon-Ra St. Brown for the startup. And as you can see here, the nice part is I am actually going to tell you what these players ended up being. So, as we saw in the first one, I moved the 111 for the 203 and a 26 first. So that was essentially moving Joe Burrow away in order to get Amon-Ra St. Brown in a first. I'm not going to lie to you guys, even in a Superflex, I am comfortably taking the Amon-Ra St. Brown side of that trade. Now, obviously, on this one, I ended up moving away the 202 and the 502 for the 208, 405, and a first and a second in the 2026 rookie draft. As you can see here, that 202 ended up becoming Trey McBride, which in a tight end premium format is invaluable. This one might not age as perfectly for me here. The 202, so Trey McBride, and the 502, which ended up being Jordan Love here. For the 208, which as you can see, I ended up taking Patrick Mahomes here. And the 405, which as you can see, I didn't end up taking. I made another trade, but this became CJ Stroud. So essentially at the end of the day, it was Trey McBride and Jordan Love for Patrick Mahomes and CJ Stroud. Obviously, take your pick here on what you prefer, but again, I got a first and second on top of it. So Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, a first and a second for Trey McBride and Jordan Love. I still think I aged that trade totally fine, even though the Trey McBride piece finishing tight end 1 here does look a little bit rough, but, it's part of the nature of the beast. So as we go here, sorry this is a little disjointed, guys, but I did end up taking Patrick Mahomes here. So as you can see, coming out of the second round here, my team was Amon-Ra St. Brown and Patrick Mahomes, and I've accumulated 2 firsts and a second out of that deal. So obviously with my own first in 26, I currently have 3 first-round picks and the core of Amon-Ra and Patrick Mahomes. I was feeling pretty good at this point. As you can see here, the next trade that I ended up doing in the startup wasn't until the 4th round. So let's take a look at what I ended up doing here, which was then coming back around at the 3-2. I took Devon Achane. So as you can see, the build so far is Amon-Ra, Patrick Mahomes, Devon Achane, and 2 extra 26 firsts and a second. Then I actually wanted to move up here, and I wanted to get a second role at a young player, and I was specifically eyeing Amari Hampton here. As you can see, I watched him fall. Tet went off the board. Laporta went off the board. I watched him fall, decided it's my time. I believe in the product. I'm going to go ahead and trade up, and I do have a little bit of a luxury to do so here. So I ended up moving away that 405 that I had traded for in a previous move, and I gave 2 26 second-round picks, so the extra second that I had accumulated during the Trey McBride trade, in order to move up to the 305. To be honest, I thought this was a fantastic price, only giving up 2 future seconds to move up a full round, exactly 12 spots in a startup. Just for your knowledge, that was the difference, again, between a CJ Stroud and an Amari Hampton. I feel very comfortable getting the Amari Hampton side there. But as you can see, guys, now we have left the 3rd round of this startup. And so far, the team build is Patrick Mahomes, Devon Achane, Amari Hampton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and 2 extra 26 first-round picks. At this point, I was feeling really good. I was loving the way that this draft was going for me. And the next trade I made didn't end up until being far later in the draft. So let's just progress as standard procedure went here, as I stayed quiet on the trading for a little bit. As you can see, wrapping back around in the 4th round, I ended up staying and taking Brock Purdy here to get my second quarterback, packaging him with Patrick Mahomes. I felt good about it. I love Purdy as a startup quarterback piece. He just signed that mega deal in the offseason, so he has contract insulation. He's attached to Kyle Shanahan and a very productive San Francisco 49ers offense that moves the ball in an efficient manner. He's got plenty of weapons there like George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey. Even if the wide receiving core is lacking at times, I do expect them to address this a bit during the offseason after they sort out the Ayuk move and what they want to do with Juwan Jennings. Ricky Pearsall's been unfortunately unable to stay healthy, but there will be options for the Niners here. Regardless, I trust the system, and I think Brock Purdy is a great value quarterback to get, even as your QB1 sometimes in a startup, depending on which route you decide to go, whether you favor skill positions or take your quarterbacks early. Now, as you can see here, I did end up moving that 5-2 away in the previous trade, so I didn't have the wraparound pick here. Another big reason I wanted to take Purdy, just so I felt comfortable with my quarterback room and didn't get stuck in limbo. Now, time really passed on here. This was a big gap for me before I made my next pick. Came all the way back around to me, and shockingly enough, I ended up taking Cam Ward at the 6'11". And this is not standard practice for me, guys. I normally like to take a bunch of skill position players, punt quarterback a bit. However, since I already went into this draft knowing I was going to accumulate extra future firsts and that I would be able to fill in some of those skill position players, knowing that the 26 class ahead was filled with young wide receivers that I very much like, I figured it would be okay to punt on taking a wide receiver here and just shore up my quarterback room and invest in a guy that I thought fell to a good range here at the end of the 6th round, a first overall NFL draft pick with a ton of upside. I know the landing spot hasn't been good, but I've been encouraged at what I've seen at a Cam Ward. Unfortunately, he did not stay on my roster through the whole season, as you'll see here. But again, having the third quarterback really allowed me a lot of flexibility to make moves later on, as we're going to see. As you can see here, it wrapped back around to me, and I had also moved my 7th round pick away, so I did not have a pick in this round. Ended up, just watching it swing on by me here all the way back around to the 8th round. At this point, I really needed to get the second wide receiver here. And to be frank, I just felt best about investing in Davante Adams, knowing that even if I'm not going to contend at all this year, which was not my plan, as I mentioned, I thought he gives me the most flexibility to move to a contender midseason and gives me the most amount of upside to print future liquidity. Again, this is all about strategy, guys. When you go into a startup knowing I might not be the ultimate contender this year, you should still be taking the best player available on the board that gives you flexibility throughout the season. Because as you can see here, guys, I could have potentially taken like a Jaden Higgins, could have taken a Cortland Sutton here, right, who's a tiny bit younger, could have taken a Jacoby Myers, a Keon Coleman, as you can see here, and even a Jaden Reed, someone who's a bit younger with more dynasty, quote-unquote, upside. But it's all about flexibility. Just because you draft somebody does not mean they are locked onto your team. You can always trade them away. So, as you can see here, I took Davante Adams and Josh Downs back-to-back here at the 8-11 and the 9-2. Didn't feel great about the Josh Downs pick, but quite frankly, wide receivers had gone on such a run, and I didn't feel comfortable taking a swing on a guy like Luther Burden or Khalil Shakir here. Figured I'd take the upside of a Josh Downs, who I liked a bit in the offseason, but clearly has just not panned out as the prospect that we all kind of thought he was going to be this year. Regardless, it was okay because as we wrapped back around here, you can see I took Isaiah Likely in the 10th round, and we missed one trade here. So let's go ahead and talk about the next trade that I did right here. I ended up sending away the 14-11 in the 7-02. So as you can see, moved that 7th round pick, as we mentioned earlier, in order to get another 26 first, a 27 second, and a 10th round pick. And keep in mind, guys, at this point in the startup, through 7 rounds, I am now sitting on 4 26 4th round picks because I have mine and the 3 that I have now traded for. At this point, I am feeling really good about the punt. It worked out fantastically. Obviously, I ended up using that extra second I had gotten, but got another one back here for 2027. Still feeling really good about the way I've set myself up in this draft class. And as you can see, the 702 ended up being Tucker Kraft, I believe it was. And I sent away the 1411, which ended up being Cedric Tillman, so essentially nothing. So really, at the end of the day, this was Tucker Kraft for the 1005, which ended up being, I believe it was Keon Coleman. It was Keon Coleman here, and a 26 first and a 27 second. So definitely not the greatest trade of all time, but honestly, I felt fine about it, especially since I ended up not keeping Keon Coleman on this roster and being very modular during the season, as you're about to see as well. So again, those trades, maybe not the best on paper to start here, losing out on Tucker Kraft, a guy I really like, but quite frankly, still panned out for me in the end. As you can see here, I'm going to blow through these next couple rounds. I took Isaiah Likely. I took Michael Pittman at the 11-2, which again, like I said, felt really good about punting on wide receiver here. I was still able to get wide receiver 18 on the season. Yep, and for most of the season was wide receiver, above wide receiver 10. But obviously the Phillip Rivers experiment here has hurt the passing volume of that offense quite a bit. As you can see here, we kept going through the motions. I took Geno Smith here and actually got my 4th quarterback. Really figured I'd take a lot of quarterbacks here, just build the team with a bunch of liquidity so I could move guys. Took Stephon Diggs in the 13th round. Have been getting serviceable production out of him. Again, I moved that 14th round pick, so nobody there. But in the 15th round, probably the best draft pick of my entire draft was Javonte Williams here. Ended up being RB10. Probably is what single-handedly vaulted me into the playoffs on a build like this. And one round after that, at the end of the 16th round, I took a swing on Ramondre Stevenson. And this is a thing that I really want to highlight for you guys here. This is my ultimate strategy in these rounds like 14 through 18. I find that taking shots on deep wide receivers doesn't always pan out here unless you're lucky enough to be the guy that lands with Troy Franklin in the 19th round. Instead, I stack handcuff, or what I consider to be backup handcuff running backs that have upside. And as you can see here, I took Javonte, I took Ramondre, and I took Najee Harris all straight in a row. And again, if you want more thought process on my strategy here, it's simply that these guys are always going to have a chance to give you production because they are just 1 degree of separation away from being a workhorse player in fantasy football. And even then, as we've seen this season, guys, with guys like Najee Harris, with guys like Ramondre Stevenson, they have gotten a solid usage amount, even knowing that they are not the long-term starter. Like, we knew Travion Henderson was going to rise up and be the guy there. Mike Vrabel still wanted to roll with Stevenson for a large portion of the year. And you've seen this happen multiple times this season where guys like Tyler Algier has given you spot starts on plenty of occasions with the upside of his rushing touchdowns, and so I love stacking these guys in the middle rounds. Okay, finally here, guys, I'm going to blow through the rest of it because I know we're in the later rounds and you don't care as much. I took A.J. Barner here in the 19th round, my Seattle Seahawks tight end. This has aged fantastically for me. Top 19 tight end on the season, only 23 years old. In a tight end heavy format, I definitely really punted tight end and only took Likely and Barner here, but didn't actually hurt me too bad. I ended up getting Noah Fant along the way as well, who now is tight end 35, but was giving you top 25 production for a bit there. Then I started just stacking some deeper plays, right? Justice Hill, Elijah Moore, Quinn Ewers, who looks actually in line to get a start this week, which is shocking. And then all the rest didn't matter as much. But all to say, came out of this draft with Patrick Mahomes, Devon Achane, Amarian Hampton, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Adams, Josh Downs, Isaiah Likely, A.J. Barner, Keon Coleman, Michael Pittman, Brock Purdy, Cam Ward, Geno Smith, Stephon Diggs, Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, Nick Chubb, Noah Fant, Justice Hill, Kendre Lambert-Smith, Elijah Moore, Quinn Ewers, Jaleel McLaughlin, Taysom Hill, Zach Moss, Zamir White, Trey Lance, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Brandon Cooks, all the while stacking all my future picks, accumulating 4 26 4th-round picks in total and an extra 27 second-round pick, I believe. All to say, it felt like a wonderfully executed punted startup. Now, if you guys are still with me here, let's dive into the actual season portion of the video. Thank you for sticking with me, but I'm hoping that this is really valuable for you guys to see how to navigate a startup, how to be able to intentionally punt out of a startup and come out of it in a winning position. And so, as you can see here, guys, I just wanted to pick up guys that I thought were going to give me production here. Nick Chubb was one of the guys I was hoping would be one of them. So as you can see here, on September 21st, after maybe a week or two into the season, I ended up flipping Nick Chubb for 126 third and 127 third-round pick. So I ended up getting 2 more picks out of this. I felt it was fine value. I just wanted to stack liquidity, and again, knew Nick Chubb was not going to be a long stay on my roster. On the 27th of September is really when I think I made one of the best trades of the year, where someone who thought that they really needed production in the immediate and wanted to still try to contend, lost Joe Burrow to the injury, needed a quarterback. I was able to sell him on the product of Cam Ward, who, again, I still think that Cam Ward has a lot of upside here, and this might not age as bad of a trade, especially if Joe Burrow ends up hanging it up or something with all the chatter going on around him, even though I don't think that'll happen. Regardless, we ended up moving Keon Coleman right after 2 really hot weeks for Keon Coleman, and he was the talk of the town. and packaging him with Cam Ward here and throwing that extra 27-second that I had got during the startup to grab Joe Burrow. And honestly, this ended up being a great trade for me. I felt it gave me, the real solid ability now to even potentially move on from Brock Purdy or Patrick Mahomes, because I don't need 3 high-powered quarterbacks, but I'm still going to take the value when the trade comes for me. And this is another lesson, guys. I know I'm riffing a little bit here, but this is all about dynasty strategy. Stop thinking so narrow-minded. I had 4 quarterbacks on this roster. I only need 2, really. Third one is really just a backup. I only need 2. However, whenever you see a chance to print liquidity and print value, you should be taking it. Even if it's not the perfect fit for your team build, you should be always being comfortable, being modular, taking your liquidity, and getting ready for the next move. And so again, I saw a spike out of Keon Coleman. I absolutely went hog wild, sent offers to every single person out there, and found a fit in a package deal that got me a premium asset like Joe Burrow. Now, the next trade that I ended up doing, because I had gotten Joe Burrow on the 27th, meant I no longer needed any Geno Smith. And with all the injuries going around this year, I saw a window where Stephon Diggs had a big blow-up game. Geno Smith obviously had not started playing as terribly as he ended up playing for the rest of the season, and I ended up packaging these two together to a more contending roster and saying, hey, it's a Superflex. I'll give you a top 15 wide receiver contending piece and a quarterback that you need in exchange for what's going to be a late 26 first. Again, this actually ended up being about a middle pick, so it aged all right for me, but I was able to get another first. And if you guys are following correctly now, we are just hitting the end of September, and I have 5 26 first-round picks. I own almost half the round of the first round of our rookie draft next year. At this point, I knew I had a ton of flexibility, and so I sat comfortably. This was at the end of September. I didn't make my next trade for 2 full months until November 28th. And that's sometimes how it goes in these leagues, guys. Sitting in discomfort, looking at your roster saying, I know I'm overperforming, but there's nothing I can do right now, and there is no good deals to be made. I'm not going to panic and sell below value on any of the guys I'm holding. I'm going to wait until we approach the playoffs and things shake out correctly. And so that is what I did. I, continued to win games. I made the playoffs, and right before the playoffs, right near our trade deadline, I ended up going to the number 1 contender in our league and offering him Devontae Adams, wide receiver 6 overall, and one of those 27 second-round picks, which I had accumulated through some of these trades here since I had 3, and went to get Troy Franklin, a guy who I really like for future upside, only 22 years old, attached to Bo Nix in Denver, has previous chemistry with the man from his time at Oregon, and I think has a solid path to being a really nice wide receiver 2 for fantasy football for the foreseeable future. And being only 22 years old, what a young prospect. He's got all the upside in the world. And getting, yes, you guessed it, another first-round pick. This one, however, is in 2027. I figured the 5 that I had in 2026 were enough for now, and I wanted to continue to stack for the future. At this point, I now am looking at 7 first-round picks in the next 2 years, 5 in 2026, and now 2 in 2027. Again, this felt like a great process move for the both of us. Obviously, the contender doing a pick swap, probably a late 27 pick, as his roster is quite loaded, and still getting Devontae, who I think will give you another great year of production next year. Doesn't look like he's slowing down at all with Matthew Stafford, but doing essentially a pick swap, a first to a second, and me taking a little bit of risk on the younger side of the prospect and him taking the immediate contender. Now, guys, to finally review here, I wanted to show you exactly what the team ended up becoming, and so I am going to drag myself back over here for your viewing pleasure so I'm not in your way, and you can see nice and comfortably here. We ended the season with Joe Burrow, Devon Achane, Javonte Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Michael Pittman, Troy Franklin, Isaiah Likely, A.J. Barner, Amarian Hampton, Colby Parkinson, Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes, nice here on the bench. Still got Ramondre Stevenson as some depth pieces. Josh Downs down here, Noah Fant, who could have upside in the future, Najee Harris, who did nothing, Quinn Ewers on the taxi squad, and as we count them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 26 first-round picks, 2 third-round picks in 26, and 2 first-round picks in 27, along with 2 third-round picks in 27. As you can see, common theme with me, I do use my seconds a lot as liquidity, so I ended up holding on to 0 seconds in 26 and 0 seconds in 27, all to pull this off. However, guys, I hope that this helped you see what it's like to take a team from a startup all the way through their first season and how to set yourself up for the future to execute a successful dynasty build. Now, me going into the next season, I feel fantastic with my flexibility and liquidity. As we talk about future strategy, I mentioned I have my quarterback position locked up with Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Brock Purdy. Quite frankly, I never hold 3 quarterbacks of this level of value, meaning definitely in the offseason here, I am going to retool this roster and probably tier off a guy like Brock Purdy and or Joe Burrow. And if I do so, I might move down from a Joe Burrow all the way to a Bryce Young type player and still try to accumulate extra first-round picks, maybe a Garrett Wilson, someone that I can plug in as a long-standing dynasty asset here. But I have the flexibility to do so because I'm not going to be able to play all 3 of those quarterbacks anyway, and I feel fine rolling with Mahomes and Purdy and having Young just be my spot start on the bench for bye weeks or if injuries happen for a little bit, right? And this is why I love setting a team up this way. If you look confidently here at my running back room with Devon Achane and Amarian Hampton, I feel good about that core 2 for the future. Now I have Javonte Williams in here as well. Obviously a guy that we've talked about, currently running back 8 overall. Yes, he's in a little bit of limbo with his contract situation in Dallas, but I personally think they are going to re-sign him rather than pay the big George Pickens money. However, that will remain to be seen. Regardless, he's played himself into a contract somewhere, meaning I still will have a third running back option on this team. I still have Amon-Ra and Michael Pittman and Troy Franklin. 3 guys that I have absolutely no problem starting in a start 11 every single week. Pittman definitely has at least wide receiver 2 upside for the next couple years. Amon-Ra is my 1, and Troy Franklin can comfortably be my flex wide receiver 3 with upside for the future, knowing that I have so many firsts next year to take plenty of swings on a loaded wide receiver class as well. The tight end position is obviously where I need to do the most work. I don't believe Isaiah Likely and A.J. Barner are going to be top tier enough to give me a top level starting producer. Those are 2 guys that I feel all right with as my tight end 2. I would obviously prefer to have like a George Kittle, a Jake Ferguson, a Tyler Warren, a Brock Bowers, someone who I really feel like I can rely on each and every week here. But again, with all the liquidity and picks that I have, it has given me a ton of flexibility to potentially make an offseason trade or move somebody while I'm on the clock during next year's draft to go ahead and take a guy I believe to be that true tight end 1. And even if I don't pull a trade off that I love, knowing with the flexibility I have in that 26 first, I have the ability to take a swing on a guy like Sadiq, who I really like out of Oregon as well, at the tight end position that could potentially be an alpha for the future. Now, again, that is how I view the roster. I still have some young liquidity in a guy like Josh Downs, who potentially, if I add a first-round pick to more of a rebuilding roster, could potentially make a tier-up trade this offseason as well. All to be said. Thank you for coming along today with me, guys. I know that was a little bit disjointed, but I wanted to try something new. Go through a season in review on this league. If you guys enjoyed what I did here today and you found value in this, I have several other leagues that I did startups in, all with different strategies and different team builds. This offseason, I'd be happy to walk through all of them and make this a series if you guys enjoy what you saw here. If you have any suggestions on how it would be helpful to get more insight into my dynasty strategy and how to set yourself up perfectly out of a startup, I'm more than happy to make more content on this in the future and cater it to your liking. If you haven't already, go ahead and drop a subscription on the channel. Appreciate you guys helping me grow out here. Drop a like on the video, comment, and let me know which trade during the startup or after the startup you thought I made the best during this season. and what sort of suggestions you have for this team moving forward. I'm all ears and I love talking about it with you guys, so would love to hear what your guys' comments are on this squad and how you think I did out of the startup in this specific league this year. All that being said, thank you guys again for the continued support and engaging in the videos. If you're looking for your chance to submit Dynasty trades to my awesome community to be reviewed by me, help you guys with your decisions in your leagues, and just talk ball and have a great time, click the link in the bio here for the free Discord. You can join in. We do watch parties for the games during each week and talk football all together as a group. It's been a blast of a season, and we are not stopping anytime soon. If you feel so inclined to get a roster review or prep accordingly for your startup this next offseason, or want to know what moves you should be making to set yourself up for the future like I have with this team, go ahead and hop over to my website, www.dynastypricecheck.com. Just the username.com. You can go ahead and get yourself a Dynasty Detox package there, which will include a consultation with me to break down your entire league, generate real trades with you, and get you a 3-year roadmap on how to build a true Dynasty. That's it. Thank you guys. I know that was a lot. We talked for a while there, but I appreciate you guys rolling with me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.